progressive states in Africa. Somalia was looked at as a figure father for the rest of Pan-Africanism under Siad Barre. From 1991, when America told Siad Barre to do what we call devolution, that the country was big enough, let's develop it into states, smaller mini states. Somalia has never been the same anymore. Somalia collapsed in 1991. Why did the Somalia collapse in 1991? Because you are Somali, you find yourself, your state was wiped out. In fact, you should be the most worried man that you have, your state, you have no state, that your state was wiped up, the institutions were wiped up, the institutions were taken off the surface. You don't have a state yourself. You are just rebuilding a state. So Somalia was taken down. Siad Barre instigated an American instigated coup because of the support that he had for Russia. They took him out. They came to rescue Somalia. They left Somalia with their trousers in the knees, half naked. They ran out of the streets of Mogadishu. They have left us Ugandans, Kenyans, East Africans to defend Somalia, to bring some sense in Somalia. Doesn't that pain you? Doesn't that pain you? It should pain you as an African that today African forces are in Mogadishu trying to bring some sense of Al-Qaeda, which is in Mogadishu. When I'm speaking and you do that, I'll take you out of my platform. Respect me. You better respect me or you get out of the platform. This is not your platform. You can go and create yours. Whether you are Al-Qaeda, you are what, you are, I don't care, damn. So when I'm speaking, respect me. I'm giving you facts, then you can debate. I'm not here to argue with you foolishly because you don't have a state. You are just creating a state. Why are you there? Somalia was wiped out of the state. It's just remained a geographical state. So please, make yourself clear. And for me, I'm very democratic. I will not take you out of the space. But if you do those signs again, when I'm just making a point to clarify so that people can debate, I'll take you out. It is what I'm giving you are historical facts. And remember, I've read political science to the last iota. I mark people, they pass exams. So I cannot tell you lies here. Siad Barre was working with the Russians at that time, and the Americans wanted a piece of what they wanted. They told him to leave the Russians and come back to us. Siad Barre, Somalia's passport was being used to fight apartheid. I hope you know that. Most South Africans who are killing people don't know that Somalis gave South Africans passports. Today we are being told that some people they slaughter Somalis in South Africa and Cape Town when they just go there to seek shelter because their home has been destroyed by Al-Qaeda. So these are some of the things that are painful. That is why I'm saying laying the history of external forces pushing for dismembering of this continent. If this continent was peaceful, if Africa was peaceful, if Africa had tranquility, guess where we would be? We would be now looking for a shuttle to go to the planet Venus. If we were peaceful and we use our resources to build schools, to build hospitals, to build all the things, can you, as you begin and as I give Abbas chance to speak, can you imagine that why is it that God did not put oil in Alps, the Alps mountains? When you are flying into Europe, the captain tells you, look down, you will see the Alps. They are called the Alps. There's no oil there. But God put oil where? In Africa. Why is it that God did not put oil in Europe? But instead, in Europe, the Alps, under the Alps, there are cities that bank our money. Switzerland, all the golden boxes are kept there, stolen from Africa. Are you happy? Are you happy? Those are the arguments. Those are the arguments I want you to bring here. Don't bring here arguments that are diluted. People want to listen to facts. Thank you very much. Abbas, my brother, pick up the microphone. It is yours now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. David Matanga. I want to say that what you say has been very interesting, and I also want to thank Ibn Midjit for what he was saying beforehand. Some of it was actually very logical. Personally, you criticized his country of Somalia for being a kind of underdeveloped state, but we can also say, I think, that you hail from Zimbabwe, no? Is this right or wrong?
I have not criticized Somalia. Never. I have said Somalia was a developing state in 1991. It was a very good state under General Barry. But the Americans came and told Jonas Yadibari.
I think you're missing something very important.
No, I am not missing. So you are saying I'm criticizing. I'm not criticizing.
You're criticizing.
Just giving you facts. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say that you're very quick to shift the blame onto foreign powers when it comes to African politics. But however, with the situation in Somalia, you must know that the state completely collapsed after the invasion of Ethiopia. There was a lot of irredentism by the Siad Barre government. Therefore, Siad Barre, he decided to invade Ethiopia to regain the lands of the Somalis living in Ethiopia and integrated within the newly created state of Somalia. And that war failed, and that's how you have a lot of the instability which you see in Somalia today. The US was actually backing Siad Barre's government. They were backing him. So how can you then say that the collapse of Somalia is because of the United States? It doesn't make much sense from that perspective. Anyway, I wanted to talk about what Ibn also said. He mentioned that in short, a lot of Africa's problems come from Africans' own instability, Africans' own ignorance and incapacity to run their own nation states. We saw this during the collapse of Rhodesia. When Rhodesia collapsed, we now had a so-called responsible African government to run the nation, which they named Zimbabwe, and you saw the collapse of the economic industries collapsed, agriculture collapsed, and there was a lot of other collapses which happened within that country. This can be mainly said to be the fault of the Africans, because at the time the West was working heavily to make sure that you guys had a responsible government, that you guys were very well integrated within the global economic system, and yet there were shortcomings by your government, which you are now trying to blame on the Western powers which were helping you at the time. We can see that Asia and Africa are not so different. Asia also gained independences. Many countries in Asia also gained independence at the same similar time to many African nation states. Yet Asia is much more prosperous than many African nation states. You can think of the countries of Indonesia. You can think of the countries of Singapore and Malaysia. These nation states, although albeit many are not considered first world countries, we can say they are undoubtedly richer than many African nation states who they actually gained independence from the same colonial power at the same time. So how can you explain Asia's ability to escape the dark forces, whereas we cannot explain the same scenario within Africa? If not but for the negligence of the Africans and the inability of the Africans to run themselves. And I want to end my point very clearly.
Thank you very much, Abbas. And you have made very good points. And I want to make it clear to you that I put up a question, I am not the one saying I wanted to hear from you. So don't turn it and think I am the one who is saying I want to hear from you. That's what we discuss. Let's discuss. Let's find out what went wrong. And external dark forces pushing for dismembering of Africa. Why Africa? And you have rightly put yourself into why is it that the Asian countries have moved that we got independence together with, have grown. You have raised very serious points about ourselves, Africans, becoming a problem. Those are the type of discussion we are looking for. Let's find a root cause. Are we ourselves the problem? If you don't agree with this, that external forces are pushing for dismembering, then can you go to Mali? Tell me what has happened in Mali. The French have been in Mali for over 60 years since it got independence. They have never stabilized. What has happened in Mali?
Matanga,
No, just wait. I'll give you time. When you are speaking, I give you time. I'm the host. I will give you time you want. Put up your hand. I'll give you time. I want you to see what has happened in most of these African countries. The French have occupied them. They collected the taxes. They take the taxes across. And then they divide the taxes back to an African country. How will an African country develop? You know very well that all players, black players that play football in Paris, in France, they don't live in the upper houses, the big houses in palatial homes in Paris. They live in what we call the lower Mogadishu, if you want, or the lower Kibera. That's what they do. So our problem could be our African problem. We might be ourselves, but there might be also external forces that don't want us to unite. That's what I'm trying to discover. So don't just balance your argument from whichever side you want. Balance your argument with facts. Don't condemn the other. We are not here to condemn each other, or you are right or what. Nobody is condemning Somalia. No. Somalia, you have given us now history. We have learned that it invaded Ethiopia, which is true, but then invaded Ethiopia when it was an ally of the Russians. You remember? You forgot to tell the people that way. I added that word for you. So when Siadibare came back, the Americans were not very pleased with him. They overthrew him. They helped him overthrow. The generals who came from South and went and took over Mogadishu. Who are they? You know them? I know them. I saw them. I've been in Somalia for a long time. I've gone Somalis. Nobody in the world gives a Somali a visa unless they go to apply. Then come. It's Uganda. Now Turkey also followed. But Uganda has been giving Somali entry visa at the airport. Are you not happy about that? My country gives entry visa. You are our brothers. The biggest number of people who are rich in my country, Uganda, are Somali. We have never discriminated you, and we shall never discriminate you. We need a better Africa. So, United States might discriminate you, but Uganda will not discriminate you. Should we dismember this continent of Africa? I'm now bringing you back here. I'm your brother. So if you thought I was from Zimbabwe, forget it. I'm well born in the mountains of Elgon. Elgon Mountains. The second highest mountain in Africa. That's where I was born in Uganda with a Ugandan father, Ugandan mother. Nobody can say I was on between the border, one leg here, one leg there. No. I'm a real Ugandan. And therefore, I stand for an Africa that is united. An Africa that is being pushed towards disaster is the Africa I'm not interested in. An Africa that is pushed towards demonstrations and destruction is not the Africa I'm interested in. I'm interested in an Africa that is united. Mr. Rao Paul, Rao Goodman, good morning, my cameraman with camels. You have lots of camels. You must lend me some in order to be able to go. You know, every Somali, by the way, before you come, every Somali person you find in the streets of Nairobi, you say, "How are you?" And I say, I want my son to marry you. She said, "Does your son have camels? 250 camels. Very expensive." So you are the best people with a good culture in Africa. We want you to have your dignity. And that's why some of us are here. We stand by you. We shall not let you down to be discriminated anywhere on planet Earth.
Thank
Wow,
you.
Goodman, take the microphone.
Thank you very much, Dr. David. I agree with you in the sense that Africa is being dismembered. It's being dismembered by the international community, by outside agents like the USA, like Britain. In our case, as Somalis, we have interference from the United Arab Emirates currently, and Qatar as well. But Qatar is a bit better for Somalia than the UAE. Nevertheless, outside interference is outside interference. I will say the only way for the African continent to unite is, now I know this is going to sound paradoxical, but it would be to ditch Pan-Africanism. And you'll probably say, wait a minute, how would you expect Africa to unite if you ditch Pan-Africanism? And I'll tell you why. Because Pan-Africanism is an ideology that calls for the uniting of Africa simply because we all live on the same landmass. When Asians have also been through colonization, but I've never heard for a Pan-Asian agenda. I think the best way for Africa to unite would be to reject Pan-Africanism and each country focus on themselves, focus on your nation as an individual nation, and start there. And then eventually, when you all reach the level, say for example of Europe, right? It's not like the Europeans started off with a European Union. Each nation developed individually, and then when they all reached a good level, they decided, okay, you know what, we'll unite as a European community, and they only let in the members that were developed enough. For example, there are many European nations now which are in Europe, however, they're not part of the EU simply because they don't meet certain criteria. So I would say that's also the best way for Africa to go. Every nation needs to develop independently. Just ditch this Pan-African stuff for now, and then when you reach a satisfactory level, then we can all come, together for some sort of union. But now in Africa, there's countries carrying other countries, and it's not viable. We've seen that it hasn't worked. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raul. I agree with you. We should not only look at the West as the only powers that are interfering with Africans, that are pushing Africa. Qatar, United Arab Emirates, the Middle East giants that have actually siphoned, that have made money and they have plenty of money. They are also interfering with the peace. Turkey is interfering with the peace in Africa. Look at what is going on in North Africa. Turkey has divided, taken Libya, one part of Libya in Tripoli. France has taken the other part of Libya in Benghazi. I am not only talking of the West. I'm not talking of Mr. George Soros. Mr. George Soros is for the West, is an outfit of CIA that always comes on Africa. I'm telling you the truth. You can live in America and eat your sausage and beef. But George Soros is the biggest problem of Africa. He funds all these organizations. And they fund. You see the worst part of Africa, of us not understanding why we are having our continent. I'm very upset today. And anybody touching me with my live wire, we shall have it break out loose here. Look, you Africans, look at you. George Soros, look at Savimbi. Can we look at Savimbi? Let me take you through the history. Those of you who are younger people. Jonathan Savimbi was fighting against MPLA of Agostinho Neto in the liberation of Angola. The United States of America sponsored Mr. Jonathan Savimbi. He was killing his fellow Angolans, bombing them with the latest weapons that they were testing on Angolans. What happened then? Jonathan Savimbi later on died like a small rat, a mouse. Is there any road in Africa named against Jonathan Savimbi? Show me one road in New York that is named after Johannes Savimbi, the man from Huambo, North Angola. He was killing fellow Angolans. Is there any road named in the US? Who was funding him? The United States of America. Did they agree ever? No. They never agreed. So who suffered here? Let's come again. Recently, Tigray and Ethiopia. How did this conflict end? I want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president of Kenya, the former president of Nigeria, General Obasanjo, the deputy president of South Africa, vice president of South Africa, the AU, the EU, the East African Community, president of Kenya, President Uhuru, the former one, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the current president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. They worked so hard. And I want to thank Dr. William Ruto for having given the chance to His Excellency, the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, to go and negotiate the peace in Ethiopia. Otherwise, Ethiopia would be nowhere. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto. Dr. William Ruto, thank you. Continue doing a peaceful journey towards Africa. The only way you can shine better in Africa is to be a Pan-African. I am shining towards Pan-African. I don't care about what goes on. I am not looking for a share of the Ugandan votes. Anybody looking for the shares of Uganda votes, I can only look for a better Africa because I can live anywhere in Africa. I can live anywhere in Africa. I can live anywhere in Africa. I can go to Somalia and live. If I got married to a Somali lady, I would live in Mogadishu. If Mogadishu is peaceful. If I got married to Egypt, in Egyptian lady, I would live in Egypt when Egypt is peaceful. If I got married to some Kenyan lady, I would live in Kenya when Kenya is peaceful. If I got married in South Africa, anybody, Likewise, even women, when they get married to those countries, you can live anywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want a peaceful Africa because you can live everywhere. It's not your border. Forget about living in your border. The question of living in your border passed a long time ago. We are no longer in we are borderless. So look at what they did. Ethiopia was a growing GDP. Someone went and caused chaos in Ethiopia. They killed each other. 2 years they were killing each other up here. Why? External forces. We were pushing for Tigray and Ethiopia to have a war. Was it our war? Let's come down to Congo, DRC Congo. We have rebels being funded first by France. The Democratic Republic of Congo government tells Mr. Macron, go and denounce Dr. Paul Kagame, General Kagame, and tell him he's supporting M23. You saw the disagreement between Macron and Tshisekedi on the platform live. Were you not in the States watching this? You watched. They disagreed. He said, go and tell Rwanda to stop funding the rebels. Macron said, I'm not the one who controls Rwanda. Tshisekedi said, no, you are the one. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need a proper Africa. Congo is never stable. Somalia, the same. What is Qatar, Turkey, United Arab Emirates? They have been fighting. They have now gone to support Somaliland. And one country goes to support Somaliland, another one comes back to say support this one. Qatar is now saying we shall do everything for you. Because they are smelling oil. They have smelled your oil. They want your resources. They are not doing it for free. They come north of Uganda, where I come from, and the west of Kenya, South Sudan. It is in chaos. It is in chaos, Abbas. It is in chaos. Those countries are in chaos. Why? Someone wants the oil, and someone says, don't worry, fight and win and get the contract. I'll give you the contract, I'll dig your oil and give you the money. Someone is fighting there. Why? There are certain things that I agree with you that ourselves internally, we are not organized. Yes, we are the problem ourselves internally. Why should somebody pay you money to go and demonstrate? Why should somebody pay you money to go and stand up in the street to break buildings, to burn buildings? Why? What are you gaining? The buildings that you built with the taxpayers' money. Why do you want to destroy it? You go to South Africa, Johannesburg. I was there 2 days ago. My friends were there. Sorry, not me. My friends were there. The whole army of South Africa is on the streets of Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, all towns. The army has come out. Why should the army, which is supposed to spend to spend most of the time guarding the territory of South Africa, guard the internal dynamics of South Africa? How much money are we losing there? Are we not getting a threat? Because Malema says tomorrow, Monday, it will be back. Why? Why should that be? Who is paying Malema? Who is paying Mr. Malema? Who is paying Malema? Answer me, you people. Somebody has paid Malema. If you don't see that, then that is it. Somebody has paid Malema to come to disorganize South Africa. Who is paying him? There must be some paymaster. Malema has no factory. Malema has no factory, has no farm. Yes, he has grievances, but he's in parliament. Is Malema not paid? Who pays him? He talks very well. He's a good Pan-African. But he has not talked openly, nicely about the Somalis being killed every day. He hasn't come out openly to stop these killings of the Somali, the Ugandans, and other people, and other countries, Cameroonian, Nigerians, who are being lynched in South Africa. So who is paying people to come to demonstrate? Perhaps I'm provoking Davis, Da Vinci. I'm just provoking. Don't hurt the message. I'm just provoking. And I want you to tell me, but I am telling you facts. There's somebody paying somebody somewhere. And if you want to take the microphone, put up your hand and take the microphone and speak. I can see, Abbas, you had a point to clarify. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think you did bring a good point earlier, whereby you said that we have to look at it pragmatically, whereby maybe there are internal and external powers influencing many parts of Africa. You talked about Turkey. You talked about Turkey in Libya, in Somaliland. You talked about Qatar in Africa as well. You talked about all of these foreign powers, but we have to remember foreign powers often come to take advantage. They don't often come to, um, ruin countries for no, for gain, which they're not going to get. There has to be an advantage that they can take, and these are the countries which they go to and exploit. You know, they don't go to any country. They don't go to Asian countries, like I mentioned. Asia and Africa were getting independence at the same time. Yet we don't see the exploitation. We never hear about the exploitation of Singapore. Why is that? It's because Singapore has strong institutions, whereas many African countries do not have these institutions. They don't have this even civic nationalism to make it a stable and developed nation state. They don't have that acumen, that political acumen you need to grow in the world and to secure your resources. That's why we see instability in Ethiopia. That's why we see instability in Libya. Africans are very emotional people. They react, they're quick to react and slow to think. We see this all the time where a leader in Africa, he is making great changes. Yet the Africans themselves are the ones, even if it is with some foreign intervention, to dismantle and break down the structures of power created by that particular leader. We see this many times in Africa, whereas we don't see this many times outside of Africa. And it is something to do. We can blame the legacy of colonialism, but the legacy of colonialism, like I said, it only goes so far. There are countries in the world that were colonized, by Germany, Italy, France. Yet they've even gotten rid of French as a national language. They've even gotten rid of Italian as a national language. They've gotten rid of German. We can look at the case of Namibia. Do you hear any Namibians speaking German? We can look at Eritrea. Do you have any Eritreans speaking Italian? Thinking about Italy? No, because that's not their main concern. Their main concern is the issues created by themselves, the Africans there, living in those particular nation states. And I'll end my point there. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. Are external forces, darker forces pushing for dismembering of Africa? And why have they chosen our African continent? That is the question today. Or are there, I could have put, are there also internal darker forces pushing the dismantling of Africa? Perhaps that one we can now listen to more other people, ourselves, to blame Africa as Africa. Are we to blame ourselves? Why would you be given money to come and dismember your own country? Are we to blame? Is it internal dynamics? So don't hesitate to say whether you are in Uganda, what is going on in Uganda? Is it what is going on in Uganda forcing you to do what you are doing? Why should we allow? Why is it that in Europe, people demonstrate peacefully, they don't destroy property? But in Africa, we destroy property. Why? Sage Mokali, thank you very much. You are welcome. Say where you are, who you are, from which country, and take the microphone on the left. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Saje from Rwanda. The question is whether we have some external dark forces pushing Africans to dismember themselves, and then why Africa? So I appreciate the last speaker. I am in the same direction, and what I think is that overall we need to stop blaming anybody other than ourselves for our issues. It's for a very long time we find somebody to blame. We blame colonialism. We blame Muzungu, white people. We blame all kinds of factors and forces, and I think this has to stop. That does not mean though that we don't have some external forces working against us. But like you said, I think the internal forces, the internal dark forces, subculture of mediocrity, subculture of fear, and huge, and often actually blind respect to dictators is what actually dismember Africans more than anything else. So if you talk about geographical or the physical dismembering of Africa, yes, we do have examples. For example, we know that South Sudan was cut into two because of external influences. We know that the United States had some interest in seeing South Sudan being independent. I also loved actually South Sudan being independent. I was hoping that will give the black people who were under the threat of extermination by the Janjaweed, by the lighter skinned Sudanese. I was hoping that these black people will be free, they will have peace, they will have prosperity when they have their own country. But see what is happening now. Should we keep blaming outsiders that they are the source of our issues? I don't think so. We had colonialism, it's been about 60 years now. And after colonialism, we received so much aid, so much bilateral and multilateral aid, billions and billions of dollars coming from outside to help us. What did we do with that aid? Nothing. And when you compare to Europe, after the Second World War, Europe received what they call the Marshall Plan. You all remember the Marshall Plan, about $250,000 given to Germany, France, and other countries that were destroyed by Americans and the Second World War. With that money, they were able to come back economically and build infrastructure, and they're where they are right now. I will not compare that to Africa because at least Europeans had some existing infrastructure and they know how. The people had the know-how. It's easy to recreate something that existed. I get that. But still, that does not excuse us Africans to always blame others. So, is there external forces? Yes, obviously, we are on the planet. We're not on the isolated island. But like the previous speaker said, why those external forces have influence only on Africa, or why do we see bad effects only on Africa? Why don't we see the same in Qatar, which also is loaded with resources like Congo or other or Guinea Equatorial, which is also loaded with oil? Why don't we see the same dark forces we tend to blame? Why don't we see those dark forces in Saudi Arabia, in Malaysia, which was almost at the same footing economically as Congo, but now it's a developed country. Malaysians make almost 40 times what a Congolese makes every year. So I think it's really high time for us to look inside, see those dark forces within us, those seeds of mediocrity. Go to Africa and see the poor customer service. See the poor. Nothing's going on. We get all this money to build infrastructure, but before it gets to the ground, everybody takes his share, and at the end of the day, we don't get that infrastructure, that road or that hospital. So we don't
So
have this sense of.
Seg, if I can understand you properly, you are saying it is our internal dynamics that created the monster of dismembering Africa. Is that true?
So what I'm saying is that our internal issues are far more to be blamed than external. Because if we are internally strong, we will not allow any external force to take us in any direction. So I think we have a subculture of mediocrity. I think we lost all these values that make a country succeed: transparency, integrity, a sense of community. So we can't think beyond our bellies. We can't think beyond our own interest. And those are the values that built all the countries. If you see countries like Japan or even countries like even China, they have this kind of national identity that pushed them so far to be themselves. But for us, obviously, colonialism and Christianity, they all took out some of our values, repressing our values by their external values, and as a result, we can be them, we can be Europeans, we can be Africans at the same time. So that's what I think. So for me, it's more within us than outside us. If we can fix our mess, if we can clean our lanes, then no external force will have an impact on us. Let us look in the hood and clean our messes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is a view of Mr. Saj from Rwanda, that the problems are ourselves. And I don't know whether Rao, you agree. I can see Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe law is on your case. Zimbabwe law is Botha. You are in Tel Aviv. Can you now link up with this gentleman and rebut the statement? Mr. Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Zimbabwean law is.
Yeah, how are you?
Mashona cynic. Brother, there you are. They say it is our problem. I don't think a Zimbabwean will agree with you, Mr. Saik. Stay on the platform and you hear from him. When people went and dismembered his country. Go ahead, Mr. Zimbabwe.
Me, myself, I am in agreement with the statements of Sage Mukadi.
Speak louder a bit.
Oh, okay, I'll speak a bit louder. I am in agreement with Sage Makale about the fact that the directions our nations take are undoubtedly a choice and are a feature of the people inside of them. I'm a big fan of the statement, you don't get the leaders you want, you get the leaders you deserve. And this is just due to a level of dysfunction that our societies have. You know, if you walk through the streets of any big African city, you see they're filled with this litter. And I'm just filled with all of this trash on the side of the streets. And yes, there'll be people who come out and talk about, oh, we don't have these strong trash collection infrastructures like the West, where they have sweepers 24/7 who will keep the streets clean. But then, like Sage Mukali mentioned about Japan, If you even see during the World Cup, they cleaned after themselves. They made sure everything was clean. If you the soccer players kept it clean. Only country in the world where they did that. Only team in the world. Maybe the South Koreans also did it because I'd imagine they would. But they kept this clean, you know. If you and you never really see any African peoples or nations doing this. It's a blatant disrespect to the space that they inhabit, and when you view that a lot of Africans don't have this sense of pride within their spaces to believe that it should be clean, to believe that it should be beautiful, that it should be the best in the world, then you're not going to get anywhere. And that's just a small level of it. Talking about trash, that's just one aspect of it. But it just comes to this greater lack of agency and this greater lack of respect towards the lands that we have. Uh, Africans largely do not believe that we are masters of our own fates. There's still a lot of strong fatalistic ideas and attitudes within our people that the West are against us, the East are against us, which I won't disagree with, but that well, that's life, and we just have to accept that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing when it comes to maintenance of spaces, like I mentioned earlier. You know, oh well, it's dirty, so that's just how it is. It's the strong fatalistic ideas. Yeah, maybe there are external dark forces, but you're not going to fight them. Of course, maybe there's dirt on the street, but you're not going to fight them, or you're not going to change your attitude and deny deny this fatalistic.
Zimbabwe, my Zimbabwe brother.
Of course, where are you from, Doctor?
I am from Uganda.
Oh, an East African man, nice and
Yes.
trustworthy.
I'm from Uganda. Can I ask you one question
Oh,
before
go ahead.
Rao comes in?
Of
Who
course,
is
hello, Rob.
funding Chamisa?
Chamisa.
Yes.
Well, Chamisa is a
Is an
Chamisa is
opposition
probably,
leader
yeah, I know
in
who Chamisa
Zimbabwe.
is. The
But
CCC. I know who he is. He's probably funded a lot by diaspora that want to see a bit of a more liberal leaning. He's probably funded by a bit of outside forces who want to see change to Zimbabwe's current path. Zimbabwe is very much in bed with the Chinese, and you know, while the West doesn't like the Chinese, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of Western funding there to prevent to try and get a more Western supporting government in charge. I'm sure there's a little bit of Western funding along with some diaspora funding.
another question for anybody who will come to answer. If an opposition party in Africa is being funded by external forces, are we not changing the color of the ruling party by replacing it with another color of the incoming party? What should we do? Because most of the opposition parties in Africa, like the one in Zimbabwe, is supported by Vanguard Africa and George Soros. And they openly say they get the money from NGOs, from those big NGOs. And the NGOs themselves, on their website, they have money. Open Society Foundation has been supporting pro-democracy political parties that fight governments in elsewhere in the world, including Britain. Including Britain. You remember when Britain wanted to get away from European Union, the Labour Party got money from George Soros to fund their campaign. So this is the type of danger I'm talking about. If a political party in Africa goes to pick money from the West, that I am opposed to so and so, you come and help me to remove him. Are we not just removing the color and the face of the person but we are replacing it with the same system that supported the other one. Please, Rao, take it. And Zimbabwe, you can answer me back, and the rest of you who are on the platform. Don't you think that is what is happening in Africa? Let's be honest and let's talk the truth. Rao.
Well, like I said earlier, there is external influence, but there's also internal influence. Say, for example, if you look at the case of Somalia, right, we've got internal interference from countries like Ethiopia, Kenya. We've got the African Union with the African Union troops that nobody wants in Somalia. Nobody wants the African Union troops, but yet they're there. So there's also a lot of internal interference, and then the African Union itself is being interfered with by the EU and by the USA. So it's essentially like a domino effect. The EU dictates to the African Union dictates to the African nations, who then dictate to their armies, who then dictate and send foreign troops to Somalia where they're not wanted, and the cycle continues.
Indeed, Raul. There's a lot of external influence, which is something I believe in. I 100% would never deny that there are external forces at play in Africa. And unfortunately, this is just the way of the world. They are the great powers, and then they are the major powers, and then they are the non-powers, which the
Who
majority of the
Zimbabwe, 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 Zimbabwe.
yes,
Who
yes.
determines greater powers? Greater powers
Well,
without minerals.
of course, but the United
No,
States is one of the most.
greater powers without minerals. Let
Of
me give
course,
you.
but
Let's have a debate here. You got Kagame. Kagame in Kigali. If you go to Kigali in Rwanda and you spit on the street or you throw litter on the street, Sage, Mukali, you are here as a witness. If the police sees you throwing litter on the street in Kigali, or bringing rubbish, or bringing the bags you have used in your house and throw them on the street, what do? They arrest you. They charge you. Kigali, Rwanda has moved on. Rwanda has moved on. So when you say they are great power in Zimbabwe, the other powers are great power. They are not great powers. We are looking at the root cause. Why we? Why are we being told to do things which we don't say no, we don't want? Rwanda, how did Rwanda come to be a stage where it is today? That the people there are disciplined. If you sit with the Rwandese, you find discipline in them by the time you leave 1 hour past. But if you sit with my Ugandan man, woman, you will find discipline in the woman. But men, we behave badly again. We don't. The general issue is we have different mindset. We think about things differently. If you sit with a Zimbabwean, again, Zimbabweans have suffered, but they are disciplined. They discipline about robots, traffic lights. Have you ever driven in Nairobi? Have you ever driven in Uganda? If there is red traffic light in Uganda, a person will come and even knock on your window for you to drive through it. Yet you are going to get an accident ahead. Drive and we go. Zambia. A friend of mine picked me from the airport in Zambia in 1996. I went to visit him in Zambia. And he was a minister. He sent his Mercedes and his driver. And when the driver started passing the traffic lights, I told the driver that next traffic light, because please stop and wait for the green light to come, then you pass. I'm telling you, we had a catastrophe of an accident. A man, the traffic was red. The guy came and rammed into us. I had gone for a visit in 1996. I ended up with my little dollars that I had to go and pay for this man's car in the garage because the whole bonnet, the whole boot was taken out because the man wanted us to pass the red light. And the driver said, "You are the sir, it is your guest who said we should stop at the traffic lights." Then the minister laughed at me and said, "Here we don't stop at the traffic lights because people mug you, kill you at the traffic lights." I understood and I shook my head and I went to sleep. I did not sleep comfortable in that house because I was now paying, I'd paid everything. My dollars that I'd come with were finished in the hotel, in the garage. So when you talk about the mindset of political parties also pick from us who selected them. We now go and look for foreign funding to help us. You have seen every African president running to America or Britain to legitimize himself. What for? What for? What is it that you want to come to Britain to seek what? You go to America to seek what? You have been given votes by blacks, by black people, by your people, white, yellow, African, Arabs. They have given you the votes. Why do you go to US to seek legitimization? You want to say, I want to be legitimized by you before I can lead my people. Don't you see the problem we create every day? Don't you see the problem that we are creating as external forces come in? That every political party in Uganda that is opposition, that is fighting, it had to seek external help. Why don't we seek our own help? Why don't we unite as Ugandans? If we are oppressed and sit together and sit down and say, this is our country, we are all united. The problem in Africa is that every political party wants power. Every human being wants power. This is why we have gone wrong. And then you have external dark forces coming in to say, if you win the power, we shall take it, the oil. The question of South Sudan. South Sudan is just earning very little money from the same oil because countries are fighting over the oil that if you win, we shall pick you and you will sell us the oil. Are we safe? Yes. Are we safe? Zimbabwe, I saw your hand. Then Mr. Mukala, Sage, I saw your hand. Then Abbas. Then we move on to any other speaker who wants to speak. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Going back onto my point about the great powers, I'm very happy you mentioned two what I think are great examples of this, which is Rwanda and you have Sudan, which are great examples of how you interact with what are the great powers in our world, which the greatest of is America. You have on one side you have a country like Sudan, a very rich country with its oil field, which had its plentiful oil fields down south in Sobat, and then you see these the Sudanese government was very anti-American, so much so that they sheltered Osama bin Laden after 9/11. He stayed over in Sudan, and just this level of just antagonizing and pissing off one of the greatest powers on planet Earth itself was just never going to go well for them, and they suffered because they thought they could stand up to the United States, and they got cut off from their oil, and yeah, that we saw what America could do when they forced them to give up South Sudan. And then on the other hand, you have a country like Rwanda, a country led by Kagame, a very, very smart man, and above all, a very, very pragmatic man who has decided that his nation will no longer be in conflict with the West, as it was with the Hutu government before. He's not going to throw away his sovereignty to them, but he's going to partner with them. He's going to do a little bit of work for them every once in a while. He's going to understand that they are the current big powers, and that until his country can reach a stage where it can ever oppose said powers, it's safest to simply submit to what your current role is in the world. I love the story of Japan during the Meiji Restoration and the opening up of Japan when the United States, it's always the Americans, isn't it? But the United States sent over a naval fleet led by Commander Perry, where they showed up and they told the Japanese, "We want to trade with you. We want what you have in your country. You can either disagree with that and go to war with us, or you can just accept that." The Japanese, seeing that the Americans were the superior force, gave up immediately, abandoned what was around 200 years of isolationism, and became, for a good 60 years, an American and British proxy. And this is just how the world works. And after those 60 years, sorry, they became on par with the Western world. They modernized and industrialized, one of the fastest countries to do it before Second World War in just a simple 60 years. And this is just how the world works. We just need to accept that there will always be foreign influence. You will always have the Americans coming in. You will always have the Europeans coming in. You will always have the Chinese coming in. And whenever you go up and fight these people, you are going to end up like Sudan. You're going to end up like Libya. You're going to end up like Somalia. You're going to end up like Iraq. You can't fight these people. You need to understand where your country is and what it's capable of and who it's capable of opposing. So when it comes to things like outside interference, it just comes down to who do you want to partner with? Who do you want to be the great power that you side with? And you side with them and you work as their proxy for however long it needs for your nation to reach the stage of development and reach the stage of power where it no longer has to submit to these greater powers. But as of right now, I do not think there's a single country that is a single African country that is at the stage where it can meaningfully meaningfully pretend that it can go up against these great powers, that it can go up against the Chinese, that it can go up against the Americans, because unfortunately that is just very false.
Okay, I think you have raised very good points, Zimbabwean. You have raised very good points to that effect that we don't have the means to run away from these guys. But is it necessary for us to be running to them? Where is our AU? Where is our AU? Why is AU part and a parcel of a wagon that takes us towards hell? The African Union should be defending this continent. Has the African Union gone in bed with the powers that come to dismember us? You can see from so many examples. Darwin, let's have your views. Then Paul, prepare yourself. My brother Paul and Jamie, tell us the story of Nigeria. What is going on in Nigeria? And when you come, so Darwin, take the microphone, then Nzemi.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Masanga. Actually, I want also to express my gratitude to you because you are such an inspiring person, always hosting such spaces regarding to discuss. It's important that we Africans together.
We
your
can't
microphone
hear you, bro.
properly.
We can't hear you.
You
Yeah, speak up.
you are not hearing me, or
Now we can hear you.
okay.
We can hear you, but put your microphone near you.
Yeah, I don't have microphone. It was on charger. Maybe that was affecting it. But I was saying thank you very much to you, Dr. David Masanga, because I see you always hosting on here in Twitter space with a lot of different African focused topics. So that's very, very inspiring, and I think it's an important that we all have to take initiatives and bring the issues that we are struggling with and put a solution, because it's us who are struggling, and it's us who can fix it. So as per the topic, I think yes, it is an external forces that are actually creating the biggest problem in Africa.